Hello and welcome back to the Listening Bee. Today's guest is Tanya Tylevich, who came to America with $90, two suitcases, and a story that could break most people. Yet she built a career spanning 23 years at Goldman Sachs, became a powerhouse in leadership and ecosystems, and never lost sight of the values that shaped her. So, Tanya, thank you so much for being here with me today, and I'm really excited for our conversation.
Of course. Thank you so much for wonderful introduction, B. Thank you so much for having me here. Much appreciated. I love
Thank
what you're
you.
doing.
Thank you. And you have such an incredible story of coming to America and overcoming tremendous challenges. Can you tell us your story?
Of course. So let me take a step back. I grew up in a country where double standards were not just common, they were practically encouraged. So in Soviet Union, nationality didn't mean citizenship in a way how it does here in the United States. It was actually your ethnic origin, and it was stamped in your passport. So instead of saying Soviet, it listed you as Russian, Ukrainian, or Jewish. And being Jewish quite often meant you were treated differently at school, at college, at work, practically everywhere. So since our childhood, we actually knew that there are two types of truth, one at school and another one at home. So 7-year-old, like literally 7-year-old, knew how to navigate between two of them. So I tried to put it like, it's probably in the simplest way, but I know it might sound quite complex. If I put it is in Soviet Union, it wasn't me who would define my future. It was the government. So my story, it's not unique. It actually mirrors so many stories for other kids in their 20s who cross Soviet border. We just didn't want to live our predicted life. We wanted to chart our own path. And what I would say, it was a moonshot journey. So we knew very well our point of this departure, but destination was definitely a mystery. So it wasn't easy to say goodbye. It was actually very brutal. And I still remember farewell parties. Sometimes they actually felt like funeral because parents didn't know if they would ever see their kids. And being my mom, and being mom myself, I can't even imagine, what my mom and, my family went through. We were stripped off almost everything. Like, our homes, of course, homes, apartments, our belongings, even, don't ask me why, our diplomas. So all you can take, it should fit into 2 suitcases. Some clothes, few photos, and copies of our diploma. At least we were allowed to do that. So that was it. And that's how, as I mentioned, I arrived in New York with those 2 suitcases and $90 in my pocket. In the beginning, I did odd jobs, it's cleaning apartments, cutting bagels, selling roses. Also, French was my second language back in school in Leningrad, Soviet Union. So my English was practically elementary. And it was actually a phrase that almost broke me. Say again, because I think what happened is I went from being straight A student to someone who couldn't finish a sentence without being asked to repeat it. So looking back, I think it's my sort of A+ mindset crashed with the reality that my word couldn't come out right. It was devastating. And for a while, I didn't feel myself. But what I'm saying, it's nothing wrong with saying. But what I would like to add is that when you're speaking with someone for whom English is a second language, a little empathy goes a long way because we are trying our best. Even sometimes we still figure out how to say it, you know. But fast forward, I made leap from selling roses to Wall Street. And I spent over 2 decades in Goldman Sachs. And Goldman definitely helped me to find myself. And actually, that's where I started to believe that I can make a difference. I also learned one super powerful thing over there. When you're surrounded by very collaborative team and exceptional leadership, you can achieve much more what you ever imagined. And it was a real magic. This is my story, beginning of my story.
Wow, that's amazing, and it sounds like it rings true that, the people you surround yourself with is who you can, like, embody and become, and how you went
Exactly.
from when I hear your story, you came from absolutely nothing, and you had to build a life from scratch, from number 1, and then go up from there, and you came here with very little and had to overcome cultural and language barriers, and I'm just curious, what kept you going, and what helped you continue on your path and journey of resilience here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I believe, of course, Soviet Union took a lot from me. Possessions, opportunities. But what we had to learn at a relatively early age is that certain things that nobody could take from you. It's your integrity, your intelligence, your drive, your passion, and of course, your education. And one thing which I want to mention when I say education, I'm not just talking about degree, because uh, I strongly believe that the biggest gift what education gives us, it's ability to learn.
Mhm.
Because what I knew, if I could learn, I could pivot, I could adapt, and I could figure things out. And also, when you're leaving all your possessions somewhere, in our case, it was overtaken, you start appreciating things, what you have, much more. And friendship was actually one of them. And the friendship was absolutely unbelievable. We were literally just a bunch of wild-eyed 20-something who wanted to make in America. We help each other with everything, finding apartments, finding jobs, and even finding furniture on New York City sidewalk. I have to admit, our first apartments were furnishing by New York City garbage days.
Wow.
But, we didn't care. We were free and we just wanted to make it. I believe we, we actually always believe that with hard work, with passion, you can do whatever you would like to achieve. And our motto was and probably still is succeed no matter what. No money, no job. In my case, very shaky, fluent English, but we were free. And failure wasn't even an option. And looking back, I think whatever we had to live through made us stronger. And that's why my Soviet Jewry story, it's not something what is behind me. I believe it's my foundation. And it actually reminds me literally every day that resilience is part of my DNA.
Wow. Your story is so inspiring. And, I love that you said there's some things that you can't change, which is like your insides, your values, and your integrity and your resilience, and how the experiences that you went through shaped that, and how, education, the most important thing is it teaches you to learn in the future. And I think that's just amazing.
Exactly.
And I love how you said, you were talking about freedom and you're free and you have, there's no vision of failure. It's succeed and just succeed. That's it. And so when a lot of people immigrate to America, I know that they come here looking for freedom. And on that, what does freedom mean to you? And what surprised you when you came to America and sought of that freedom?
It's actually an excellent question. And for me, again, because of my journey and background, freedom always has two sides. One, what a government gives us, and another one, what we actually give to ourselves. And of course, when I came to America, I knew almost immediately that America is country of freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of talk. And in the same time, the biggest freedom, what I believe we do, it's a freedom to be ourselves.
Mm.
And I had long corporate career. And of course, after 20 plus years, Goldman became a huge part of my identity. It still is. And I believe it happened with so many of us. Our job becomes our identity, becomes who we are. And when it's stripped away, we feel lost. So after Goldman, I actually gave myself another freedom, opportunity to find who I really am. And I'm happy to say I found it. And so I sort of discover my real calling, and being an ecosystem builder, it's when you connecting people and bring those connections, you're connecting people in companies. And what you do, you after that turn those connections to a real magic. But at the same time, going back to freedom, I would say we cannot take our freedom in America for granted. And the way how we protect our freedom, of course, is different for each of us. But the responsibilities are the same. So for me, it's actually speak up for real diversity, not just like, checking boxes. It's more like embracing the Medici effect, diversity of opinion, diversity of disciplines, cultures, generation, everything what make spark, when real innovation. And a couple of months ago, when I posted on LinkedIn, you in your inbox, quite a few people ask me, aren't you afraid to say those kind of things? And my answer was actually very simple. I'm afraid to stay silent because my biggest fear is not to be criticized, but to see our kids, your generation, be growing in a country where potentials are boxed and voices are filtered. And that's why I'm speaking up, because I'm really afraid what will happen if I don't,
Yeah.
if we don't.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying
Yeah,
that.
no
And
worries.
that really rings true because in my generation, I've seen that a lot of people in school and just in general, we're scared to ask questions and we're scared to say our true opinions because we're scared that people are going to be like, that's wrong and criticize us. But what you said is so important. We're in America and we have this ability to say what we think. And we should take that ability and that freedom and, build off of it instead of cowering and being scared of what other people think whenever we say so. So that's just
Exactly, because it's a huge gift what our country gives us.
Mhm.
And I was there when you were afraid to ask questions. So I remember that feeling very well. And I remember stories what my parents were telling me. So that's probably another reason why I cannot be silent.
Yeah. Can you tell me one of the stories that your parents told you?
Yeah, they talk about different things what happened at work. The same, you couldn't say certain things. It's a lot of think about Communist Party. It's probably going to be completely different podcast one day if I would like to tell you about Soviet Union,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of story behind and definitely a lot of great books. But I took a lot from my mom. And unfortunately, my parents are not alive anymore.
Mm.
And as Elie Wiesel said, when you listen to the witness, you become a witness. So it's my responsibility to share the stories. And of
Yeah.
course, it's not just, stories at work. It's Leningrad Siege. It's a lot of stories.
Wow.
And I would love to, maybe another day tell you more, especially about Leningrad Siege.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful what you said, when you are a witness, you become when you wait, what did you say again? Because how you said it was
When you
perfect.
listen someone's story, you
Mhm.
became a witness.
When
It's
you
not
listen to
me, it's Elie Wiesel. I didn't say it exactly the way how he wrote it. But
no, but yeah,
that's
that's
basically
beautiful.
one of the saying which define my behavior, defines the way how I live.
Wow. Yeah, when you listen to someone's story, you become a witness.
Yeah.
I love that. And let's see, I'm thinking about all the experiences that you've had in your life story, and I would say, like, the two main things that come to mind is you had, like, a lot of courage coming to America and speaking up and, not staying silent, and then also passion, and that kind of passion to start a new life and have your freedom and build your success was, like, a big part of you. Is that true?
You read me very well, V. Nothing, I cannot hide anything from you. But yes, you're absolutely right. Because I had to change myself, sort of reinvent myself so many times. And I believe when you take in on something that big and sort of leap to the unknown, courage is absolutely number one requirement. It's with my courage, I was able to leave my home country in
Mhm.
1889. But courage alone wouldn't take you through, because what happened when you arrived here, you met with different challenges and setbacks. And that's where passions comes in. Sort of you need some, I don't know, fire inside you. And it's because what happened, it's so many things that can break you, because stepping out from image what you built of yourself can be very, very difficult. And that's what could break people. But what I hate, I had passion inside me, passion to make an impact and build a legacy. And that's what actually kept me going. And right now, I haven't told us before, this passion is actually taking different form because I'm writing my story.
Yes, I read it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I know I shared it with you, but I haven't shared it
Yes.
with bigger audience yet. So it's because for so many years, I was focused on what was in front for me, in front of me. And I didn't have time to reflect, but now I do.
Mm.
And I'm very committed to share it because I actually believe that my journey can help and inspire others. So this is what is my passion right now.
That is beautiful. So if imagine that you share your story with someone else who's maybe also immigrating to America and going through the same thing that you went through. What do you hope it it shows them and it tells them?
As I mentioned before, it's certain things people cannot take, country cannot take from you. Your integrity, your intelligence, and of course, education and everything. And I believe it's extremely important to discover who you are and ensure that you still sharing your story, you're sharing what people had to go through to appreciate much more what you have here. Right now we talk a lot about resilience, and resilience is very complex. It's not just surviving in one country when you left your home country. We all need resilience every day, and especially in our days. And that's why it's extremely important when you learn what other people went through, when you learn how others and your friends and family been dealing with challenges. That's how you learn real lessons in life.
Yeah.
You know, it's not you just applying the experience in your experience, but it's extremely important to ensure that your puzzle is very complex. And that's what we call intelligence. And you know, those kind of things. It's
Yes.
a lot.
That's
It's a lot what you can learn from other people. Sometimes it's just extremely important to listen and have your eyes open.
yes. That's beautifully said. And I think a lot of people my age can adopt that too. We can learn from people that we look up to and, see their story as an inspiration and be a witness and pick up like the traits that they had.
We, we need to be fighters. You know, sometimes it doesn't mean that you have to fight uh, all the time. You have to pick and choose your battles, but extremely important to discover your values
Mhm.
and be yourself.
Yes, I think that it's easy nowadays since we have social media and so many things to pick up a lot of different values and a lot of different things. And what's your advice for, finding the ones that are truly you and not just something your mom or dad tells you and that you think people want you to be?
You know, it's, I would say, the most important to live full and don't shrink. And definitely, there will be moments when you feel absolutely hopeless. I've been there. And one thing we always need to remember, we are never alone. So reach out your network. And of course, I'm not just talking about your social networks that also can be very helpful. You know, reach out to your friends, your family, but sometimes even people whom you don't know personally. And that's where it's huge benefit of social network. And I can share with you at the moment when one door had slammed shut and I couldn't find where the new one was. I actually reached out someone whose career transformation I always admire. So this person had very successful career in investment banking, built something new, spin out, and made it real. So what started as like a regular coffee chat very soon turned to the conversation, which actually helped me to open the door, which I hadn't seen before. And a lot of credit for that goes to Rahan Doctor, the founder and CEO of Louis AI.
Huh.
And I think what this experience taught me, we always have a common community. And that's why this podcast, what you're doing, it's absolutely amazing because you actually create this very supportive community for your generation, for millennials, for everyone. And I believe this is absolutely, absolutely awesome. So thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, thank you.
And back to my advice, another one, which I would like to say is in order to achieve something big, you need to give up perfection. Because what my experience taught me again and again, that progress is much more valuable than perfection. So don't afraid to be imperfect. I shared my story with you again. It's another proof that almost actually crushed me. And also don't wait until everything is polished. And it actually applies a lot to all my work with startups and building ecosystems. Because the most important is to move forward. And courage plus passion plus progress. This is a real formula.
That's beautiful. Courage plus passion plus progress.
Yeah.
I love it.
Cannot be perfect.
No. Yeah, I think that there's a whole illusion around the idea of perfection and that people should strive for it, but it's like someone's dangling a bone in front of you and you keep trying to get closer, but it just keeps getting farther away. So progress is definitely such a valuable insight.
Mhm.
Yes. And you talked a lot about ecosystem building, and for you, what an ecosystem for businesses is where you connect and network with people and connect like that?
Yeah, let me actually take a step back because it's for me when my view on economies, it actually forms from two extremes.
Hmm,
Because I grew up in Soviet Union
right.
when everything felt closed and predicted. And when I came here, I saw what happened when people, ideas, opportunities, they move freely. So that's what completely switched my view, how I think ecosystem should operate. So in Goldman, we actually used to call it connect the dots. And that's what shaped me a lot. So I saw the huge value when two dots connected at the right time. Introduction, conversation, like, you shared ideas that became something absolutely big. So what economy does, it's economy grows when people connect, trust each other, and build together. That's
Mm.
how actually I operate in the startup world because I'm sort of looking for those sparks when two dots haven't been connected yet, but absolutely should. So, and again, my experience, I've seen so many times that when you bring people, talent, and capital together, that's where, all this ecosystem, they sort of form organically. So it's back to your question. My background taught me that opportunities come up when dots connect. So I've built my career to creating those moments and helping to turn them into something real. That's what it means for me.
Wow, that is just beautiful, and I love the idea of connecting dots. It's satisfying to me too.
Yes, it's like, it's we are connected. When you're creating your community, that's what you do. You're connecting people, you're connecting their lives, you're connecting their experience. Like, it's absolutely awesome when you connect and after that you can see spark.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I love how you talked about, with your experience and your background, you came from the Soviet Union, which is like communist and more of a command economy, and then you have America, which is capitalist and more like market economy. How is your view on what an economy should be like right now?
I think what's extremely important to ensure that opportunities are not boxed.
Mm,
America always been country of opportunities because people would like to achieve, prove, build. And that's why what is so beautiful about United States of America. And we would like to ensure that people will have huge desire to build, create, and live here. That's what is so important. And don't afraid because it's definitely there is no ideal place. There is no ideal system. When we talk about communism, unless you lived through this, it wasn't communism, it was socialism, but communism was a dream. It's a completely different story when you live through this or when you just read books, and someone
mhm.
talking about this hypothetically. Sometimes you need to take a step back and do deep dive to the history. I believe what is extremely important and what the biggest challenge, we cannot change the history. we need to learn from the history. And that's what is so important. And I would say history is one of the most important subject of our education. And it's not just subject what you're taking in school. It's also how you learn from your families, friends. And also, I know we talk about social media. Social media has tons of pluses. The biggest challenges, we don't read as much as we used to.
Hmm.
And it's a completely different experience when you have a one-on-one with your book than you just reading, like, small articles, other people. Of course, you need to have both. Like, it's extremely important to learn about other people's views, but your foundation, it's understanding of the history, reading the book, and that will help you to sort of formalize your own view, your values, and define how you would like to build and pass in your life. And it's not so much like, about certain ideology. It's much more about how you would like to live and build your legacy. Because legacy is not something what you building when you enter life. Legacy is your life. Of course, it's perfectly, and it's great that we're changing our view. It's great that we are evolving. But in order to evolve, we need to learn. And that's why I extremely believe, back to my previous thing, that what education gives us is ability to learn.
Yes.
So
That's
those kind of
that's
things. And
beautiful. I
yeah,
wish every teen could hear what you said.
no, like, believe me, I have someone who's not seen anymore. I wish, you know, him and his friends. But to be fair, it's what we always would like to ensure, and I think it's a story of all immigrants. We would like to ensure that our kids, they know where they came from. It's extremely important to know your roots, and I think it's very important for everyone in the United States.
Definitely.
Because especially we are a country of immigrants, we all know, all histories behind.
Right. Yeah,
Mm.
on that, with if you had one piece of advice to give to teens maybe my age right now who are in school and are learning history and what would your advice be on finding ourselves? And if
I
there's like
believe what I mentioned, like, in the beginning, live full,
live
because it's
full.
extremely important. Don't shrink, like, because don't let others to shrink you,
Mm,
because it's okay not to be right. It's okay to learn things hard way, but ensure that, you're literally stepping up for your ideas, for people whom you love, for learning, for don't afraid to speak up when you think that something is going wrong. Like, it's always debate. That's what is extremely important. I think, like, and especially during teenagers, yes, sometimes it's more challenging for us to maintain dialogue, and that's what is extremely important. And when I say live full, that's what it means. Like, capture, listen, ensure that you're not just looking in one direction. And
yeah.
someone advised it to me a long time ago, and I actually strongly believe in it.
Yeah. Wow, that is beautiful. Thank you for everything that you shared today and with all of sharing your story is just so inspirational to even someone like me. I was born and raised in Texas, and so I'm lucky enough to live in America and experience the freedoms that we have, but it's like you said, it's so different to experience something different. Because I can imagine what it might be like in the Soviet Union or how it is in other countries, but I've never experienced it, and so getting to hear you, I get to be a witness to your story, which is just such a gift, and I wanted to thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Bria. It's such a gift actually to have this conversation and knowing you.
Yes,
So much appreciated.
me
It's
too.
been
And
it's
so
been great.
yeah, are you ready for our last question from our previous guest?
Of course,
Okay, this is a
I'll
fun
try to
one.
do my best. I promise.
Okay, it's what's something that you've outgrown? And who are you becoming because of it?
I believe it actually goes back to perfection because
Mm.
my say again story, that's literally who I was. Because, and again, it's nothing wrong to be A plus
Yeah.
student, but that's what I learned, that it's, you have to evolve. And for me, for the rest of my life, to have heavy Russian accent, that's how life learned me. You cannot be perfect from that perspective. It's impossible. Like, I started learning English when I graduated from high school. Yes. And that's why it's okay not to be perfect. The most important to evolve, to make an impact and build a legacy.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
of course. Thank you. Thanks again.